Hello and welcome to the Bee Formless Flow Driven VC podcast. I have the lovely or the amazing Gary Jinks all the way from California, pretty much in Silicon Valley. And it is what? It's Wednesday there, Gary, and it's Thursday morning here. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's great to have you here. I am super excited to talk to you because you are the innovative guru by the sounds of things. And I want to just kind of almost set the scene in a way because I think we're going to have a very innovative conversation also in terms of that you have been for quite some time, and I'm going to let you share your journey, but you've been building what you're calling this innovation ecosystem. And you're the founder of GLJ Group, which is to create innovation, but then also the founder of South Valley Angels, which is to find the innovation. You've also then established and have a platform which is called Scale Upstream, which is to then fund innovation. And you've got huge amounts of years and years of experience in Silicon Valley, spanning the corporate, tech, all of it. And you can talk more about that. You've worked with thousands of businesses and accelerators as well, from a worldwide perspective, calling out a few like Plug and Play. There's a couple of others that you mentioned that I'll let you talk about. And your work emphasizes discipline in execution, the importance of thinking like a CEO to drive those results, scale impact, and design long-term success, which is literally all underpinned by this whole like, innovation piece, right? So
Yeah,
tell us a bit about your journey.
sure. So I got out of the Army in 1981, probably before you were born.
No, I was born in
And
77. I was born in 1977, so I was alive. I
oh,
was
that's when I graduated high school. So yeah, I ended up in California, in Monterey, California, at Fort Ord in 1981. I got out of the Army, got hired by the largest combat vehicle manufacturer in the U.S., and spent my first 18 years in research and development. I was on the design team of probably 25 combat vehicles, working with agencies all over the place. So that's how I got involved in innovation. So I started by just, the government would come to us and say, hey, we want something that can do this. And we would sit down and figure out how to do that. So I learned how to do innovation at a very high level, strict, Six Sigma, all that stuff. Everything had regulations like no tomorrow. Then in about 1999, I'd kind of capped out where I was in the company. I was about as high as I was going to go. I was senior management, but I was still young, so I thought I needed to do something else. And in 1999, this thing was happening in the valley called the .com. So
cool.
I organized my own layoff, which left me with a year's salary when I walked out the door. So from there, first my daughters and I went and rode roller coasters all over the place. So we spent the summer riding roller coasters.
Are you kidding?
And then, yeah, that was fun. And so then I got into a startup. Um, and the .com was pretty much a coffee break. It lasted about 18 months for me anyway, maybe 2 years if I count all the months. But anyway, and when that started crumbling and collapsing here in the valley, I got picked up by an aerospace company that wanted that was Rockwell Collins, and they wanted me to take their aerospace technology and figure out how to put it on the ground because they didn't have any. They were on everything that flies, and that was their only market base, and they needed to expand that. So we did that, and we were highly successful. And so they decided to move me, and I decided I didn't want to leave the Silicon Valley. So I said, yeah, thanks a lot. No, but no thanks. So I launched GLJ Group at the end of 2004, um, doing fundamentally the same thing. I was bringing technology to market primarily for DoD and deep tech type companies. And that put me in some really interesting positions at that time. I got to work with DARPA on the Grand Challenge 1 and 2, which set the standard for autonomous vehicle driving, which is what everybody's built to today.
Wow.
Um, and then I got to work with a lot of early sensor companies, and which we now call IoT. And so I was in very early stages of things like that before they got started. So that was a lot of fun. Um, Then in about 2006, I finished a big contract. Actually, with my previous employer, I went back there. They brought me in as a consultant, and we built what they called MRAP trucks, mine resistant, ambush protected. So we'd never built a truck in our life out of that building. And we
Wow.
delivered 2,200 trucks in about, oh, what was that? Maybe about 12, 16 months. And they're about 600,000 a piece. But the big part of that project was that they don't blow up to roadside bombs in the same way. So we had over 800 of those vehicles hit roadside bombs, and they carry anywhere from 6 to 9 people, and everybody walked out of all of them.
Amazing.
So that was fun. And then when that ended, the U.S. economy was kind of upside down. So I was trying to look to, like a good business person, follow the money. Where's the money? Well, in the Silicon Valley, my corporate guys didn't want to hire anything, didn't want to do anything. We're waiting until next year. And anyway, I said, fine. So I said, well, what's always going on in the Silicon Valley? Startups. So I said, oh, let me look back at startups again. Only this time, I didn't look at startups with the intent of joining one. I looked at startups to bring the experience I'd had from 1999 to 2006, and I wanted to bring that experience into the startup world. And then one day I was sitting at lunch, listening to a bunch of guys talk in the table next to me. And so, being the shy person I am, I butted in and started talking to them, and they invited me over to their table, and we sat for a while. Next thing they said, well, hey, why don't you come to our office? Are you free after lunch? And I said, yeah, I'm good for about a couple, 3 hours before I have to go do something. And they say, well, great, here's our address. So I go over there, and there was a handful of them, and that was the launch of Plug and Play,
Wow.
which is probably the largest deal maker in the world today.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, I worked with them for several years, which got me sort of engaged in the startup world, and I started seeing some issues or just things that I felt weren't quite right in the purest sense of creating innovation. For example, everybody was all focused on how to do a pitch deck. Well, pitch deck doesn't have anything to do with innovation, and there is so much focused on pitch decks. I go, man, that just doesn't seem right. And I felt that some of the methodologies that they were using, even though they had their
Restrictive.
place, weren't quite, to me, that I didn't feel they were quite right. People were starting already with a product. And my first question to them, well, how did you arrive at this product? And they said, well, this is what we feel that the market needs. And I go, that's a problem. So they built the product they wanted. I mean, even in the DoD, we never built products that we wanted to build. The government came and said, I want one of these. So they said, I want one of those, and we built it.
So
And
what is,
so,
yeah, before
yeah,
I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second because
go
I'm
ahead.
really intrigued because I want to know what you see as the purest sense of innovation. You may be getting to that bit. So if you are, tell me just
Yeah,
to
I'll give you a quick summary
patient.
on that. So to me, pure innovation comes from understanding what your customer wants. So when I started working, there's certain tools that are standards in the industry. One of those is for example the lean canvas. So lean canvas is the
Yeah.
standard tool that they've been using forever, and it's a great tool. I think it's a great tool. The problem with that tool is that's where you start. Then that assumes you already have a product. Now you're trying to find the problem the customer has, who is your customer, what is the customer, and so forth. And the problem I have with that is if you're starting there, it's a crapshoot. You're in pure innovation. You should be starting with a vision and a market direction. Where is the market going? Where do you believe the future is going to be?
Hmm.
And then you have to validate that, which then drives the opportunity. So once you define the opportunity, what's your vision? Where the market's going? What's the sandbox you're in? What are the trends that are happening in that box today for the next several years? And what are the market segments underneath that could benefit and would be the kind of things that you would look for? Once you do that, now you understand an opportunity. Now you can start looking at a product to build. But 99% of startups, they don't do that. Especially if they're technical, they have a gut feel of what they want to solve, and they go out and solve that problem. Now, you can start with a problem, but if you start with a problem, this problem is something futuristic, you know, and you always that they're kind of the same, so you're always kind of having that in the back of your mind, but you're starting with understanding where is the opportunity going. So, for
Yeah.
example, if I sit down, let's say, So I'll give you an example right now. I believe that the AI industry and AI is going to follow the exact same path as the computer. I was in the
What, sorry?
Silicon
It's going
Valley
to
in the
follow the same path as,
exact same path as the computer.
yeah,
So the computer took everything from paper and made it digital.
yeah.
Now, I was working for that company that for FMC United Defense, which is now BAE. But anyway, I was working for them when PCs came out. I was a department manager, and I remember IT coming in, putting a computer on a desk, and said, "Here you go. Here's your PC." So we looked at it and said, "Well, it's not hooked up to anything. What could it possibly do?" Because everything was hooked up to something. It was either a mainframe or, they were different computers. So this is a PC. So it sat in my department for probably 3 months before anybody even looked at it, played with it. But that computer changed the world, and it
Which,
blew up, did everything, took us into the digital age.
which is
And
AI.
AI is going to do the same thing. It's going to come in, it's going to start. Now, if you in the Silicon Valley in the late 80s to early 90s, there was over 1,000 computer companies in the Silicon Valley. And they all had their own store. You could walk down El Camino and there were more
Wow.
computer stores than there were health clubs. Um, Now there's only one company left, and that's Apple. Everybody else is gone. IBM no longer makes computers. HP doesn't make them, but they have other companies making for them. So what happened in the computer world is the big guys that came up, the Silicon Graphics, the Compacts, the HPs, the IBMs. When the second wave of computers came by, they all said, "Yeah, we're not even going to compete in that market," and they all quit making computers. And that second wave was Dell, Gateway, the companies that came out and said, "Hey, we can build a $750 computer all day." At that time, all computers were $2,000 to $3,000. I don't care what
Yeah.
you want. And the big boys said, "Yeah, yeah, we're not even going to play in that market." And they didn't. They closed out, shut their doors, moved on, did other things. The companies still exist. Some of them didn't. They just closed their doors, gave all their employees their stock options, and called it a day and went home. And that's going to happen in AI. So most of the AI that's coming out from today, most of the investors in today's AI will fail, unfortunately, because what's going to. But now, if they do the things right, they can survive. I would say that most of the AI companies that are coming out today will last 5 to 7 years, and
Mm.
these are the ones that are successful, not the ones that die quickly. Because when the second wave of comes in the next 3 years, from 2 to 3 years from now, it's going to be so advanced to what they have. It's going to be like Dell coming in and say, "Hey, I can build your $3,000
Yeah,
computer
it's
instead of giving you
fascinating, isn't
fifty
it?
dollars."
Yeah, it is
And
fascinating.
yeah, and because of that, I think early stage funding should change.
Yeah,
I think you should plan on just being in there a few years.
yeah, I love your whole like, and I knew this would be an innovative conversation, but I want to go back to a point here because I think it all relates to what you're talking about in terms of you talked around problem and solve in terms of and this is me, like this is how my view on this. I feel like I think you would agree, but correct me if I'm wrong, but we too often go, here's a problem. My gut said, well, I'm all about the intuition and gut. Like I think you need a lot of it, but you also need the other actual, data to prove it out, etc. But quite often we'll go, oh, here's a problem. This is the solve. And so we jump from problem to solve without doing all the solution finding. And what you're talking about here is there's a need to the problem solve model doesn't work. It's how do you what's the solution find to then address the actual problem? And this is what you're talking about here in terms of, well, I feel like that's what you were talking a lot about because you see a lot of the time that it's like, here we go, here's the answer, but actually it's not the answer. And I think that the word and the terms problem solving is completely wrong. It's a miss in terms of it's actually we're solution finding to get to the answer of what the actual problem is here and how do we address it.
Yeah, so let me give you a couple little uh, snippets or sort of little buzzwords here that I like to look at in this idea. So what you're really looking to do is take an idea and turn it into a business,
100%.
a successful business. Now, and that's great. That's what you're doing. So if you're going to go problem to business, that's fine. But most startups forget the business part. So that's where the opportunity comes in. If you don't understand where the opportunity, so for example, right now, Would I launch an electric vehicle company today? Probably not. They're already out there. It's becoming a mature technology. Even though I could maybe think I could do it now, companies will do that, but it's not necessarily the right timing. So 42% of startups fail because of timing, and that's mainly where the problem comes in. They solved a problem which was great, but they should have been talking to us 2 years ago to solve that problem. Now here's another buzz. So there you go. The idea is to take an idea and turn it into a successful business. The second thing is I would say is that everything should be solving problems. But you could also look at it from the other side of the coin. Science solves problems. Startups create innovation. And there's a big difference. Problems, serious problems that people want to solve are expensive. And so that's what deep tech's all about. Let science solve the problem. I would argue that we're in 2025 now, and I would argue that nothing has been invented in Silicon Valley since Intel and the microchip. Now, has little things been invented? Sure, they've done stuff, but nothing on the scale of Microsoft. So startups aren't about inventing, they're about innovating. Google wasn't the first search engine, but they innovated how search engines were built. Apple wasn't the first computer, but they innovated how computers operated. You can go on and on and on. Facebook wasn't the first social media. The list goes on forever. None of them invented anything. Now, do they maybe invent a little piece of code or a little something? Sure, there's invention, but there wasn't a Microsoft chip.
So where does invention come from then? Like, what's your view on that? Like, if we're talking
It
about,
comes from university sciences and government labs.
and you're saying let that be, let them solve that problem, but let startups be the innovation, the ecosystem of what you're talking about here. Is that right? Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
that's what I'm saying. So deep tech by default, my definition of deep tech is anything that takes a lot of money to figure it out.
Yeah.
Quantum computing is the next biggie coming. Okay. So great. Let science do that. Because as an investor, I'm not interested in funding you $400 million to figure out if your idea works. That's pharma, that's deep tech. It's
Yeah.
not uncommon in deep tech to spend $100 million and say, wow, this just isn't going to work. And as an investor, yeah, I just don't want to go down that road. So invention is done by science, deep tech, innovation is done by startups. Innovate what the scientists came up with.
Well, love. Yeah, that's a great analogy.
There's two ideas. Those are the two things,
Yeah.
that kind of, I think, floats a lot of what I do.
Okay, and so can we talk about what you when you booked in for the pod and I asked around what's, a unique insight or experience when it comes to lived experience when it comes to life leadership and investing. And you said you talked around because everything we're talking about here warrants discipline, right? And you said especially when it's you're in startup and there's that need for that the innovation, it also requires discipline because innovation is creative, it's big thinking, it's visionary, it's everything else, but it also requires the discipline and strategy and structure around it. Without discipline you have no control of your results. This is what you said. Thinking
Mm-hmm.
like a CEO is seeing the bigger picture and communicating it clearly in a tightly disciplined framework. This bit got me though. Luck is the residue of design. I'm like, Gary, I was about to call you Gaz then, and I'm like, Gary, where is he
Yeah,
going with
yeah.
this? So, can we talk about this, please?
Sure. I'll give you a couple. We'll do that. So we'll start from the backwards. So design, luck is the residue of design. If you spend your life making bad decisions and bad design, you're going to have bad luck. If you spend your life making good decisions and so forth, you're going to have good luck just by default. It's just the nature of now you're going to have some bad luck, sure. But if you're designing your life and doing the right things, more likely you're going to have good luck. So that's that part. Now, back when I first read the book way back when, what is it? The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. One of the 7 things is discipline. And I'd argue that if there's only one, and it's discipline. If you fail at discipline, you won't accomplish the other 7, the other 6. So you have to have discipline. That has to be number one, or you'll veer off track. You won't stay on track, and things just won't go. So if you have no discipline, then you have no control of your results and where your life goes. You're basically just in a raft going down the stream, hoping you go the right direction. But if you have discipline, you can paddle the right way, you can turn the right way, you know how to, so forth. So that's where the discipline comes in. Now, all those other things are important, but to me, discipline is number one. Now, the second part of that is thinking and
Can
talking
we
like a CEO.
can
Go
we
ahead.
can we just stay on discipline for a minute before we come
Yeah,
to the CEO
sure.
piece? Sorry, I'm not being rude when I interrupt, but what does discipline look like for you? Like in terms of what does discipline look like for you in your business, but also what does it look like for you when you're looking or working with these startups? Like what do you see? Like what are you seeing in terms of how do you know when they've got discipline and what can you see when they absolutely have no discipline?
Sure. Sure. That's easy. Discipline is what you do when nobody's looking. So you're doing what needs to be done. You're getting up in the morning. If you want to lose weight or something like that, you get up in the morning and you exercise. But it takes discipline to do that. If you don't do it and you don't quit, change your eating habits or these kind of things, you're not going to achieve your goal.
Mm,
So that's what I look at there. The discipline is doing the things that need to get done when people aren't looking. There's no flash and glory in discipline. It's just a matter of doing what has to be done and sticking to it. If you're disciplined and
consistently.
work hard, you'll be successful.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's a really good because it's so true. Because when you go onto like the likes of social media and LinkedIn and things like that, and everyone's got their big shiny, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and you're thinking, okay, but like, what's really happening behind the scenes, and all the discipline and the hard work is when no one is watching, and there's times when you're in like you're a founder or you're in startup and you're building and you're like going, oh my gosh, like if only people could see what I'm doing day in, day out, but it's that discipline and the ability to stick at it. Like you say, be consistent, show up when it's like when no one's watching because you could easily not show up and put it out there and this is all happening when actually for me, it's more important what's happening that no one can see.
Yeah. Well, I'll put it this way: being legendary is lonely.
Oh, I haven't heard that one. I've always like I've gone. It's lonely at the top, but being legendary is lonely. That is, you're pulling all the good quote, all the good ones
Well,
out
there you
today.
go. You don't become legendary and you don't become awesome by accident.
I'm gonna write that one down.
Anybody. So I watched a young kid in Florida when I was down visiting my kids. She says, "Oh, you got to come see this kid. He goes to my music school. You have to come watch him. He's really good." And he's 9. And I go, my granddaughter's 9, and so they go to the same music school together,
Cute,
and they
yeah.
know each other. So she says he's going to be playing at the St. Patty's Day event, downtown in Punta Gorda, which is where she's at in Florida. So we went to watch the kid. Well, he wasn't just playing; he was the headliner. There was 1,000 people out in the audience that came to see him. So I watched this kid, and he's amazing. He was even on what was it? He was on one of the talk shows. So who was it? I can't remember which one it was now. But she asked me, says, "Wow, what's it like to be like, to just wake up and be this good?" And he goes, "I didn't wake up and be this good. This is all I do."
Yeah. It's mastery.
Anyway,
It's that
you
discipline. It's
work
that,
at it. So
yeah.
so it's lonely. That's where the loneliness comes in. You got to put in the time, and you don't put in the time with a group of people around you doing stuff. It's just you. So anyway, so that's kind of my perspective a little bit on
Okay.
that.
Now we can go into the CEO bit. So just a reminder, everybody, you said that where was it? You said thinking like a CEO is seeing the bigger picture and communicating in it clearly in a tightly disciplined framework.
Yes, I purposely tied the discipline in there so that it went with the other half because you told me I could only answer one question, so I tied them together so it was formed around that. So anyway, and so one of the biggest things I see that kills startups is they don't speak and think like a CEO, and the reason is because you don't wake up in the morning except as a startup and become a CEO.
No, absolutely not.
Everybody else starts in the warehouse. They work their way up. They make it into the office. They become a supervisor. They become a manager. They become a director. And then when you get a little bit of this, or whatever, you learn how to be a CEO. It comes over years and years of learning how to do that. Now, so you don't just wake up and do it because 99% of entrepreneurs have never created a market, created a product, brought it to market, found the team, founded a company, got funded, all these things. These are all brand new. You wouldn't be a surgeon without going to school. You wouldn't, so you shouldn't be starting a startup without going to school. And you need to understand those shortcuts. And most of them just don't have the CEO skills. So when they get up and do a presentation, their product may be awesome, but they were unable to communicate the important features of that, or not features, but the important aspects of what they're doing, why they're doing it, and the important stuff. They get down, and I always like to say, if you're showing me how easy it is to log in on your app, we're already on the wrong page. You're a CEO. I want to understand, where do you believe the market's going? Why are you doing what you're doing? So it's that aspect. And the worst thing I feel the worst lose is when, as an investor, we have exactly what we're looking for, standing there pitching to us, and the CEO isn't communicating what we want to hear. He's telling us his features. He's selling us a product.
Yeah.
He's not selling us a business case.
He's not selling the,
Um,
he's not, they're not selling the vision like you talk around. They're not selling the dream, like the vision, like what, it comes back to this kind of, for me, it's like, here's the North Star here. Here's where we're going. Here's where this is with where this business is headed. This is the current market. This is what the future looks like. We're shaping it. We're reshaping it, and then here the vehicle is the product, for
and here's how we're
example.
doing it.
Pardon?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
said, here's how we're doing it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
generally starts off by, hey, we're solving this problem. Okay, nice problem. And then instantly I get a feature set of their AI business tool that's now got 42 feature sets on it that they want to run through and talk about the features. That's a customer discussion. In your very first presentation to an investor, there's a few things going on. One, we used to just say, would I get in the foxhole with this person? And if you're selling me a product, my answer is probably no. Steve, I would argue. I would argue. I'll get back to Steve here in a second, but I would argue that as a CEO, you should never be selling your product. You should be selling your vision and why you're doing it. So if you look at Steve Jobs rarely sold his product. Steve Jobs sold the idea of, we're going to change how you listen to music, what you want, when you want, where you want, in your pocket. And then he'd hold up the iPod and he said,
That'd be good old
and there
iPod. I
you
forgot
go.
about that.
Yeah. Now that wasn't even his vision though. His vision was iTunes, but he needed a product in which to do it. Just like Microsoft. Microsoft wanted the computer to go to touchscreen, but nobody made one, so they couldn't release their Windows 10, or was it Windows 8? Whichever one it was, whichever one's the
Yeah.
touchscreen. I think it was 10. Anyway, so what they do? They created the Microsoft Surface. So they, at least somebody built it. Now every PC is touchscreen.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's the deal. Steve Jobs always sold the vision, and he had other people do it. So you'll notice whenever he did the keynotes, he did the visionary opportunity. Here's where the opportunity is. Here's the vision. Here's where the market's going, and this is what we're going to do here. Then he'd leave the stage, and Steve Wozniak could come out and talk about the product. Okay, different discussion, different people. People don't. So the same thing as a startup. You're trying to build your team. People don't join your team for what you're building. You'll get more people to join your team for why you're doing it.
Yeah, and I feel like that is absolutely on point. Like it is all about that. Like, your vibe attracts your tribe. There's one for you. But it does. Like, and from a CEO perspective, or from a, founder perspective, it's absolutely about what, for me, it's like that inside out form of being a leader. It's like what's going on the inside, and then how are you communicating that externally to get people to come on board to what you see as the vision for your business, and then why.
Yeah,
And and for me, that's the life piece and also the leadership piece, in terms of the two are interconnected. Like, you have to be demonstrating your passion and your why, and how you're intrinsically connected, if you like, to this business as a
mm-hmm.
founder. I think if you've
Yeah,
got like, if you're not attached, if you're detached to it, it's obvious that there's a disconnect going on there.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then you get a
So I'll
disengaged team. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. So let me follow up on a little bit of that. So, for example, there's two types of visions. There's the corporate vision, which is most people think of in vision. And when I was working in corporate, I always thought vision's useless. What's your company's vision? Oh, we're going to be the world leader in whatever. That's a corporate vision. An innovation vision is the future of will be,
Mm.
or we see a future where this is happening. That's an innovation. That's a startup innovation, not a corporate vision. So they're distinctly. Now, the other part of this that goes along is in the pitches, when you're pitching your product to an investor, you're selling me a product. It's amazing. Here's our competitors. None of that. Here's the key features a product needs to have. You notice we're the yes, we have all yeses and they don't. So we're awesome, we're amazing, we're better than our products, than our competitors. And so I'll ask them, oh great. How when did you launch your product? Oh, we're launching it next week. Then how can you tell me it's awesome? You haven't even launched it. Why are you telling me your product's better than somebody who's out there with $3 million in revenue that have been around for 4 years? There's nothing that says your product's better than anybody. So don't spend your time telling everybody your product's better because you have no clue yet. You haven't even launched it.
So are you saying, Gary, just on this, are you saying to me that, and I love this innovation vision, like the future of will be. So are you saying that quite often you'd prefer someone coming to you or work or, like, investing or working with a startup where they may not necessarily have their product. I guess you
Yeah,
have.
these are early stage. We're talking early stage at this. We're not
Yeah,
talking,
early sta
later stage that have revenue and have gone
yeah,
somewhere. This is the
100%.
coming out the door. Yeah.
But early stage, it's more around the future of will be versus the product because the product still it may not even be born yet in terms of it's still being created. It's being, do you know what I mean? Like, is that what you're talking? Is that what you're saying here?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Don't
I
sell
love
me
that.
that you've got an amazing product when you haven't even built it yet and
Yeah,
nobody's using it.
yeah, it's
It's useless. So you're not selling. It's particular early stage companies. When you're talking to an investor, you're not selling a product. You're selling the opportunity. You're selling the vision. And so here's another example on opportunity. When I ask most startups, what's the opportunity? Oh, it's a $350 billion market. That's not an opportunity. That is purely a market size. That would be a $350 billion market that's full. So, for example, the print newspaper today still makes several billion. That's a multi-billion dollar industry. I don't know any investor who's going to invest in a print newspaper anymore. It's still a multi-billion dollar industry. So your TAM, SAM, and SOM, or the triplets as I refer to them, is not an opportunity. It's
it's
purely one
fresh.
measure point.
Hmm. Yeah, it's really fresh. So it's really fresh to hear it because for me, I've always, I've struggled with this problem solve because the problem's never the problem. The brief is never the brief. Like you need to go on a hunt. You need to solution find what is it. Like you need to go and fact find. Like you need to go find it. Like find
You need to
actually.
validate demand, or what we want to say, where is your evidence of demand? So early stages, that's one of the first things we do is when people think they know, when they've gotten through and they've defined where they feel the market's going, they define what the real opportunity is, not just the TAM and SAM and SOM. They know exactly what it is, the trends that are going on, what's driving it, and they have gone out and talked to enough people that says we have evidence. Now, the true evidence is when you launch like an MVP or something early stage and people use it and you can talk to them and get feedback from them. Evidence changes as you mature. The
Yeah,
bar gets higher and the metrics change. But you have to have evidence that there's demand.
yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it? It's so fascinating. Quick couple of questions for you. What are you seeing as the big innovations coming through at the moment? Like, what are you seeing coming out of Silicon Valley, or even like the people or the business, the founders, and that you're working with? What are some of the
Good.
yeah,
So let's go back and use the computer as an again. So obviously the big thing coming out right now, rather than going into things like quantum computing, which is going to radically change things, and metaverses and things like that, and headsets. So I developed headsets with Rockwell Collins. We developed the very first headset deployed, and it was
wow,
called Land Warrior Display. If you look at NATO, it hangs from every NATO soldier. It was an OLED display, and it has all their command and control, weapon
interesting.
sighting, and everything through it. And that was in 2000. Oh gosh, what was that? Two maybe 2002. So that when those started coming out, and the very smart glasses and things started coming out back in 2002, 4, 5, 6, 7, everybody said the world was going to be wearing headsets. We're in 2025. the world is still not wearing headsets.
Yeah.
So all these people that said, "Oh yeah, yeah, we're going to build an amazing headset," didn't happen. Now they do sell; they're out there and they have their place and so forth. But that's an example of a technology that was going to blow up and hasn't. So, I believe that in the near future, it's going to be the application of AI.
Yeah.
The same way that what really drove where we are today wasn't that big computer box that's sitting on our table. It was how companies applied computers to embedded devices, edge computing, embedded systems. How did you apply the computer? So the first wave of all the AI that's out right now, most of the companies got AI because somebody built something and they were creating a large language model so you could talk to the computer. And so they've got these companies that a lot of these AI is based on that. But that's not an application. They just incorporated what was out there into that. So when I see a startup that everything they have is based around the ability to communicate with a computer, I always ask them, well, why are you doing that? Well, because everybody has to be able to do that. Well, but yeah, Microsoft put Copilot on everybody's computer over a year ago. Trust me, they're going to own, Microsoft and Google are going to own the communication part, just like they own the search
Yeah.
and they own the operating system. Okay. Now everybody else is going to build all those edge computing, embedded systems, all those applications that they applied computers to, which are everywhere now, and their microcomputers and all these kind of things. I mean, our phone, this thing here has more power than the first 5 computers I ever owned by
I
far.
know. And they're more expensive. Phones are more expensive than laptops and computers these days. It's like wild, isn't
Yeah, yeah, but this is still $1,000. I can get a computer that's way more powerful than the $3,000 Mac I bought in 1990. Anyway, so it's going to be how you apply AI. That's going to be the innovative part of it. If you apply that correctly, you'll have innovation that will go. Now the question is, how do you survive the wave two that comes by and does that same thing so much better?
it? Yeah.
So now with that, I think that's a biggie, and that's going to go on for a long time, and it's going to change how things work. It's not Chat GPT, it's not large man, da 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 da. It's how do you apply it in a tool or a skill set that is successful and does what people want, that people will buy and make use of it. So I think that's a biggie. Application of AI. And then from there, you're going to go through, still hardware changes, because there's two things that are coming that are going to drive everything. One is the amount of data, and two, the power to do so. Those are going to be massive because just data mining alone and creating all these. I saw a stat the other day that somebody said they were talking about Chat GPT asked people to quit saying thank you
Oh,
to the
yeah, I saw
computer.
that too.
Done.
Yeah, absolutely.
The amount of energy that
It's
they consume.
taking.
Because once you say thank you, it goes on and starts thinking again. And now, if you got 10 million people an hour saying thank you, you're consuming a small town in energy. Anyway,
It's crazy,
so
isn't it?
these are things that are going to come. Again, these are applications. It's innovation. Everybody, where is it going? Innovate. Be creative on innovation. That is what made the Steve Jobs, the Bill Gates, the Mark Andrews, all these guys, that's what made them big. Not that they were inventing anything,
Think
but
different. Think different, Gary.
they thought different, and they came up with innovative things to do. When I remember when Google came out, and everybody goes, "Oh God, another search engine! Wow, I don't need another search engine." And Google says, "Oh, we're not a search engine. We're a data capture engine that's being used as a search engine."
Yeah.
Whoa! Oh, hold on.
So,
I'm not
Gary,
going to Google.
I've got one more question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
What is next for Gary? What's next for the GLJ group? The fact that you've got an innovation ecosystem, you find the innovation, sorry, you create, you find, and you scale. That's kind of what you do, right?
That's kind of what I do. Yeah. So what's next for me? So right now, since I moved out of the Silicon Valley about 8 months ago, I'm about 2.5 hours north and sitting at the foothills of the Sierras in a little county called Amador County, which is next to
Beautiful.
Sacramento, which is
Yeah.
actually the capital of California, although most people think the Silicon Valley is, or LA. But anyway, that's a different story. So mainly I've been building ecosystems for a while. So I launched the first I started this in 2016 when I launched the first corporate innovation center in Saudi Arabia with Saudi Telecom. It was called Inspire You. And we launched 18 companies in 21 months, one unicorn, six acquisitions, um, three successful companies, and then a couple that just sort of ran around and did stuff. But anyway, and that went up to the last incubator that we built. So I've opened two accelerators in the Silicon Valley. And that just come from my experience. Because once I started with plug and play back in 2006, I just happened to be on the sidewalk at the right price. So after at the right time. So after that, I went to work with Nest GSV, which is now Nest or GSV Ventures, and I helped them open. Which then I went to Draper University and helped them open. Then I went to Black Box, and during that time, I worked with pretty much every incubator and accelerator that opened up between 2006 and 2015, probably. So that's where I got my ecosystem. And in 2016, I had somebody ask me to come to Saudi Arabia, and we opened up the first corporate innovation center with Saudi Telecom. And that led up to 3 years ago was the last accelerator we opened up, which was called the Multiverse. And that was in Palo Alto. And that's the on and off ramp for all digital entrepreneurism and digital startups
Amazing.
between the United States and Saudi Arabia.
So you're
So
not
what
going
I'm
to
doing
rest,
now
are
is
you?
the same thing. Yeah, so I'm doing that mainly. I just in the process of getting an accelerator launched in Japan,
Amazing.
Bridge Japan in the US. So that's going right now. I'm working with the county. I'm here in Amador to create an ecosystem to see if they can create an ecosystem for the county. And so we're putting together what's sort of a what I call a circular ecosystem, an end-to-end ecosystem where we're creating an accelerator called the entrepreneur was it the entrepreneur let's see the what do we call it now the uh, um, entrepreneur for center of the Sierras, the entrepreneur center of the Sierras.
Amazing.
Yes. And so with that, what we're going to do is the idea is we're going to start seeing whether or not we can create startups that work in this county. And then because this county is pretty small, we want to be able to roll those startups out to the appropriate businesses within the county and get them to be early adopters at no cost, but potentially be able to let them have a little bit of get on the cap table a little bit, or to get revenue out of helping these startups launch. They'll then use their products, pay for their products, become a customer. Now, those customers might be early adopters and never pay for the product. That's a negotiating thing.
Amazing.
And then from there, we're going to bring the technology at the same time and do a circular end to end where not only do we launch the idea, but we put it in the hands of customers. We then allow the communities to get engaged with it, and then the technology instantly gets incorporated out and everybody within that system. So it's what I call an end-to-end
Ecosystem.
ecosystem, not an
Yeah. Love
innovation
it.
ecosystem.
I love it. Amazing. Gary, you've got like you're not stopping. Like it's just this constant, you're constantly innovating, you're constantly shaping, reshaping, you're formless and you go from one form, you become formless and you go into the next form. I absolutely love it. I really do. How do we
Thank
find
you.
out more about you?
If you can do a couple things, people are more than welcome to email me if they want to do something. And I don't get out and do as much as I used to. Like I said, I used to mentor everybody around and do stuff like that. I still do a little bit of that, but I work on a global scale. I've got partners all over
Well,
the world. So anybody that's interested can either contact you. You can send them to me. They can get a hold of me at Gary at gljgroup.com or whatever works for them. But I'm always open for helping ideas and moving the pipeline. There's 158 million entrepreneurs in the world.
it's amazing, isn't it? Yeah, you've definitely inspired me and reminded me that, the innovation is key. And I mean, I love innovation. I love thinking about future. Although,
That's all I know. That's all I know. That's all I've ever done, and it
yeah.
works great for my short attention span.
Yeah. Gary, thank you so much. I've truly enjoyed listening to your stories, but also your whole, I guess, just your expertise in the innovation space and being clear that you absolutely need discipline and the role of the CEO is critical as a founder. So there's been a few really juicy tips and insights and reminders for me also. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. I enjoy it.
Thank you, Gary. Have a wonderful evening.
I will. You too.
Thank
Well, it's
you.
morning for you.
Yes.